So, welcome. We are here with Angela Mary Magick. So many things, and including Modern Witches teacher, FemmeCee upcoming in October. And I am
So
just
excited.
so excited for all of that and so excited to keep, it feels like we're really adding things to a cauldron here today. And so I'm excited to make our own virtual witches brew together through this conversation.
Beautiful.
And I just want to honor and invoke all the sweet spirits and souls who are tuning in and uh, really being present and engaging with this conversation. So, welcome, everyone. And welcome, Angela. I'm so excited to be talking to you today.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you could hear. I hope the audio picked up the crow that was cawing. I just opened up a window before we got into our little broadcast here, and there's a crow cawing wildly in my little cul-de-sac. I love it. I love it. Suburban witchcraft. Let's go.
Let's go.
We're
All the
all
crows
doing
are welcome.
witchcraft in our bedrooms now, and I just love it. I love it. And I
It's the
know
best.
all of you out there are just cozy in your beds with your little device, just enjoying being witches with us. And so, welcome.
Yes. Okay. So let's just dive in. I would love to ask, when you felt, your connection with spirit, that moment in your life when you just felt that you were in some way having a sacred or spiritual experience in your human body.
Yeah. So, I don't know if your channel has like a content warning on it. So I will just say, like, being a witch, for all of my life, I'm 55 now. I have been through a whole bunch of stuff. So that would include like I've had cancer before. I've given birth naturally a couple of times. I've had a miscarriage. I've experienced young childhood sexual trauma. There's no undoing that. And I know that I'm in so much good company because we witches endure a lot in our bodies, and a lot of us find witchcraft from what we've endured in our bodies, not just the joyful part and the fun part, although that's super abundant as well for we witches. I knew I was a witch when I was 3. I had a lot of stuff going on when I was 3 years old with what my family called imaginary friends, but they were real spirits that lived inside of me in a tree that was in my body. And they were unclothed, but they weren't naked. And they were Duddy and Toto. Which is so much fun to say their name out loud. I did not see that coming. I love it. And so, they were always with me going through things that I would go through in my daytime life. So my nighttime life was my safe and happy time in my own home, because outside of my home in the daytime, which is supposed to be safe with the sun and everything, it wasn't. So witchcraft and spirit energy tucked me in and kept me safe at night in my own home with my 8 brothers and sisters and parents around me. That was what was safe. So it's very it was obvious to me, that it was Mary's presence, because Mary was also inside of this tree that lived inside of me. And we went to church a lot. I'm from a big Irish Italian Catholic family. And so we because there's 11 of us, we had to be so organized. We sat on the left side of the altar. We always knew that's where we would go take up an entire pew. And that was at the feet of Mary. And the Mary shrine was there with fresh roses. So it's the aroma and the knowledge and wisdom and the energy and the plant genius of roses and Mary and incense and candles, where Mary kind of pulled me up from her bare feet, because you could see her bare feet in this statue, this full statue. And she kind of pulled me up through her hem and up into the cloak where I just could play. We had to be quiet, and I loved that. I loved being able to play with those different sensuous energies of the aroma of plants and incense and Gregorian chant. And, I don't know. It worked for me.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Oh, it was gorgeous. I had such a like a positive experience because both my parents really super worship Mary, and I'm not going to get too much into their
Mm,
story because witchcraft has always been this real concatenation of pleasure and pain for me. I've not gotten off easy and I've had the most glorious ride too. It's both. So I'm not out here just flying the flag like, be a witch. It's a blast. It is. And it's my joy and it's my pain, because I've had to endure layers and layers and layers of rejection and also like obsession from other people because of witchcraft, And so it keeps me on the edge of my seat, that's
mhm.
for sure. I just love to share the beauty and power of witchcraft. I do.
And I think you're right. So many of us find witchcraft through our pain and our trauma and really needing that, like, I don't know what the word is, but that sense that Mary can give us as an energy of home, like you
Yes.
mentioned.
Yeah,
So
totally.
how would you so how would you define witch? And it seems like you're very comfortable using that term. It's something that
Yeah.
you own. Yeah.
It's hugely intentional too, because the more I do it, the more it brings me in both realms of joy and pain, in pleasure and pain. So I think to claim the name witch is to be nature, which is to be change. So, witch and change are really the same thing. It's riding those energies that are always unfurling towards available nourishment and light, right?
Mm,
And I just feel like witch means change and it means honesty because you can run but you can't hide if you're gonna I get into this a lot with you, Casey, that idea that we're going to talk about things that are witchy and try to keep it at bay and safe and aesthetic only by calling it witchy. No, witch is different. Witch is uh, ancient and it's future all at the same
mhm,
time. And it is a much more serious thing. And so it's, I think change is the best thing I can come up with. It's honest change because we're embodying energies and we're experiencing our body in motion changing through time. And I have never found anything but witchcraft that had more of an honest approach to how our body shifts and moves with, the waxing and waning moon and time and energy and trauma and joy. So yeah, witch and change go together. Witch and nature go together. But that is a tough one. It's mercurial. It jumps around. It's really hard to define, isn't it? And that's what I love because it's mystery. It's an open space. It's the void where we can explore. So it's whatever our relationship is with being in the dark and not knowing as well, I hope that didn't just obliterate any kind of idea of rootedness in it, because witch is also about root. It's our sexual self, it's our sensuousness, it's how we relate in the world through all the orifices of our body, what we smell, what we see, what we hear, everything that we feel and taste and sort of know intuitively. Witchcraft has space for all that. So yeah, that honesty, that change, that mystery, that rootedness, that owning our sexuality and our sensuality in all the ways that it shifts and changes all the time, that is witch.
mm.
Cornucopia.
Yes. Cornucopia, yes. All of it. I think it's so interesting because you had me thinking about, not to go too like a neo-pagan on anyone, but it did remind me of Wicca being some people translate as the the verb to bend,
Oh, I've not heard that.
which I find so interesting because we're
Yes.
bending, we're changing, we're flexing.
Yes.
And I'm curious, what do you make of the term modern witch? Like, what is a modern witch to you?
I love it simply because it's going to let us face our bullshit, because there's a lot of hierarchical bullshit all around us because we're steeped in it. We're brought through it like a veil that rips us into modernity, right? So modern witch helps us, for me at least, face how we can do better, face that we can not just build up cathedrals of oppression that we were raised in, that we
Mhm.
understand so deeply. I remember some years ago, there was an article in the New York Times that's the byline was, "Have we reached maximum witch?" And I am still having feelings about that byline, because trying to contain witch is not possible, right? So how can you write about it? How can we experience it? We have to just be there for that change, for how it shifts and moves and becomes different energy. Have we reached maximum witch? I cackled and I was frustrated at the same time when I saw that byline, because it's like, it's just like this world to try to saber rattle that there's a possibility, that there's a topping out, that there's some kind of a level that you hit and you can't go past. No, no, we're just becoming in this multiverse. We're becoming. And so, yeah, I love Modern Witch so we can look at the ways that we can not uphold systems of oppression, so we cannot build more cathedrals and temples of pain. And so we can keep it wild and free, not a pyramid whatsoever. Much different than that, a rooted foundational experience that always references the soil, the unknown, the darkness, the death that creates new life. The seed has to be buried within. It has to be in the dark to exchange its intellect with the soil. They have to be left alone in the dark to share their knowledge and wisdom of what they are with each other and become that new life that then has to burst through violently to make it through the surface and grow towards the sun. The whole thing has to happen mysteriously in the dark. And I love that we witches know that. So, no, New York Times, we have not reached maximum witch. Call me, I'll talk to you about it.
100%. I feel like there's like scarcity built into that too, or
Amen.
something. Like,
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah, and there's a
very interesting.
competitive
I also,
feeling.
yeah, it is the
Doesn't it
new and
feel
the
like
old.
pitting witches
Mm,
against each other vibrations too? Which it goes on in a very big way. We both see that in
yeah,
a really big way, Casey.
absolutely. And it's not about that in any
Not
way,
about that.
you
No.
know?
Wild and free.
Wild and free. I'm curious, since we're on the topic of freedom and wildness,
Yeah.
um, how has your, you spoke a little bit about this, but how has your personal lineage shaped your witchcraft?
Mhm.
And what other traditions or lineages have been really influential for you in creating your own witchcraft?
Yeah. Well, witchcraft was so different in the 80s and the 90s, and even from each other. Witchcraft in the 80s and witchcraft in the 90s is, and a lot of stuff went down as the internet was born as well. Um, Gosh, let me just try to reference. Well, first of all, I'm raised in a family where there's so many of us kids, and there's 5 boys and 4 girls in my family, and the oldest one's born on my dad's 22nd birthday and goes boy, girl, all the way down the line. So it's this really
Wow.
lovely, fully blended experience. And we all have these totally different ideas of who we are. And mama and pops are still alive and very nearby. They just live 2 miles from me. And so they're always having to kind of face what it is to have a daughter that's an out witch. We've always been super close, and I was their one child that they decided to have. Everything else was what they called God's plan. So the Catholic Church was the core of our entire life, and that worked for some of us and not for others. I got to be with Mary. It totally worked for me. I loved being with nuns too. We had some really cool, like kumbaya type, acoustic guitar type nuns around in the 70s, and that was pretty cool. Um, Mary was always having me collaborate in gardens, in bare feet, in cemeteries, and so and pushing me to go further and ask more questions and do more. So yeah, the Irish Catholicness was a big, big deal. And then when people got into doing their DNA, we found out which I was something I always physically knew, is that we have a wild amount of like Italian lineage too, in our blood and in our bones in my body. So
Mm.
yeah, I said when I was a little girl, back when Duddy and Toto were alive in the tree and Mary inside my body, that I was going to grow up to be an Italian buckle shoe dancer, whatever that is. But everybody knew that. It was just what I said. We had a lot of time and space because we had not a lot of money. And so there wasn't resources, but we had a giant garden in our backyard. So everything was about growing our food. And it was something we were proud of. We didn't know we needed to do it. We just did it, right? So lots of storytelling, lots of Celtic storytelling going on in my childhood. And when I got into really studying goddesses and witches and witchcraft, my relationship with Sheila Nagig was just like epic, because it was so wonderfully wild and gruesome and radical, with Sheila holding open wildly with very, very spread thighs and knees, her vulva, with sometimes snakes entering and exiting her vulva, and wild hag hair and everything. I've just loved how far that went. And then the older I got, I'm like, that story is stolen from us. We don't even know Sheila. There's just speculation about who she is and why she lives above certain castles and churches in the British Isles, particularly in Ireland. We don't even know our own story, which I find just fascinating, exciting, hideous. Um, yeah, so witchcraft keeps me, you know, pulled in, excited, and wanting to scream at the wind too. How are our stories stolen like this? And so, yeah, I don't really have to look too far outside of myself. Although in the 90s, there was a lot of super appropriative shit going on all around me, and everybody developing their mystery schools with, like pamphlets and books that they could make copies of at Kinko's and stuff. Like right before the internet, there was a lot of mystery schools around with a whole bunch of tantric practices, like a lot of Hindu borrowing and a lot of like indigenous borrowing and stuff like that. And I looked into a couple of different mystery schools, and they just out and out said straight to your face, if you're planning on becoming a mother, it's not the right time for you to take the priestess path. And I just thought to myself, what the fuck are they talking about? This is my body. How am I going to be separate from this vessel in any experience, no matter what I decide to do with it? So I just had to keep that solo journey towards all those exciting and maddening mysteries that, like, for instance, Sheila Nagig offers me. I don't know. That was a lot of information all at once, but I think I contained that question. I think I did.
Right. Oh, definitely. definitely. I'm curious too. I mean, there's so much symbol that we can find in our own lives and our is just by to really find those symbols, in your backyard and in your family unit. And that's a
Yeah.
really beautiful reminder for folks.
Yeah, we had a kick wheel for ceramics in our backyard that my family literally physically built. And so we would just sit there kicking the kick wheel, whether we were like throwing clay or not. I wasn't that into the clay, but I loved moving that spinning wheel and just being mesmerized by it. It was right next to, like, it was all held down with bricks and stuff, and it wobbled. And, it was just a very earthy childhood. And I know that you know this, Casey, but I'm developing like a really small collection of cards that are called Altaloon Sensual
Yeah.
Oracle cards right now that are about my dance with Sheila Nagig. And I'll just show you this shape that's developed right now, that I'm looking into, because of Sheila and my love of stick and poke tattoos and the tarot of Leonora Carrington. This is the same shape of the tarot of Leonora
Mm.
Carrington, but that Sheila Nagig shape is just coming to life right now. And I'm working with someone who's amazing. I wish I could mention right now, but we're just getting our contract together. But I'm just creating some gorgeous pieces of ceramic that are with English and Irish clay that will be Sheila Nagig vessels. So by the time this comes out, maybe they'll be developed a little further. But that Sheila shape of the vulva with fingers, 4 fingers holding them open, and this serpent that I'm calling Altaloon. I'm in this big mysterious experience with these sensuality cards that are about really embodying your definitions, your experiences with your own sexuality. And that includes asexuality. It doesn't have to be like always climactic and orgasmic. But yeah, for me, I don't really need to look into other cultures. There's plenty that's been stolen from me that I'm trying to remember just in this form. I'm always feeling like I don't have enough time to look into the things that, you know, I have in my own bones.
Beautiful. Oh, I cannot wait for those ceramics.
I'm freaking out. I
Wow.
can't wait to show you what's developing right now. Yeah, and through Modern Witches, Casey, you and I have been talking. You've been so wonderful to like celebrate my wild journey and hold space for it. That COVID travel willing, I'll be taking a bit of a journey in 3 enactments, a triptych, a love triangle of spells through the Modern Witches Coven, whom I just adore, and I'm an active member of that coven. I'll be taking a physical journey to 3 locations, and one of them I'm hoping and praying is the Kilpeck Castle in Wales, UK in
Mm.
September, that I'll be able to live stream broadcast from Sheila Nagig themselves, that's adorned above the St. Mary's and St. David Chapel Church
Oh,
that's right there at the castle. That's what I'm praying happens. I just have the sense that it's going to happen.
oh, I can totally see it. And
Me too.
I have to ask about the snake because instantly when you started talking
Yeah.
about your time with Mary, um, there's been this lingering question for me because on a lot of old Mary statuary, there's always a snake under her foot,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's so gorgeous. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on like Mary, snakes, and your relationship with snake.
Well, I'm born in the year of the snake. And
Oh,
for, which I celebrate so much right now because we're in a time, especially in California, where both of us are, where there's been intense violence against Asian American and Pacific Islanders. And for me to be able to like proudly, happily talk about the Chinese year that I was born in and just be in a white middle-aged body celebrating ancient practices and not allowing us to take the edges off of other people's cultural experiences. I'm so excited to be in my dance, in my relationship with being a Year of the Snake witch. Snakes are so many different things, celebrated and feared. And, there's a big relationship with Mary Magdalene and serpents too. And I'm Angela Mary, as you know. A lot of people somehow think that my name is Mary, but my first name is Angela. My middle name is Mary. Um, Part of this is I'm having fun. My tarot deck is Moon Baby Magic Tarot, and it's a flip book because there's so much stress in the world. I love to have a toy to kind of finger and noodle, in life and
Mm.
return to my physical form. And when you flip my tarot deck, it shows the lunar phases in a flip book like a kid would make, like almost 10 times. Well, Altaloon oracle cards, the backs flip like a flip book and the front does. So you get to see Altaloon have this sexy journey all around this vulva shape, which very much
Wow.
has that lunar phase in the center that is meant to be that button that looks like, part of our sexual self, my sexual self as a femme. And this forbidden creature serpent will physically move all around the Sheila shape. So it's the dance between Sheila and Altaloon, which I can only play in because, like I keep saying, it's been stolen from us. We don't know what that journey is. We only know the hierarchical fables that were told to us, and in my opinion, to create fear in us of
Mm.
our own pleasure, fear of how we regenerate like a serpent, fear of tasting the fruits in the garden, of perfection, and that would somehow change the world in a bad way. And it would be all of we witches' fault in our nudity, in our temptation to nourish ourselves with apples and listen to the energy of a serpent sharing their wisdom with us. I'm interested in that, but I've only to be in my innocence, in my childlike innocence, and create a flip book and take all this fear away from it and let it be a joyful dance and let it be something that I'm moving towards that makes me free from all of those forbidden places that are mired in fear to control me. Does that make sense? I,
Absolutely.
if I could, I have a core quote that I'm working with right now that I'd love to share with you, and it's the embodiment of the my witchcraft right now. As a person who's endured a lot of things and celebrated lots of things, I acknowledge the incredible privilege that I hold in my white, middle-aged suburban body. I have a lot of privilege, and I know that. And yet I'm oppressed and the oppressor. So it's always slowing down and having like incantations and quotes and folks with mastery around me that I can learn with and from to slow down. So I don't just come on in with my privilege and just trample everything, right? So the quote that
Mhm.
I'm working with now is a quote that was written in Audre Lorde's diary when they were dying of cancer.
Mm.
And they had some years to go and they didn't know how many. And this quote is so beautiful. So if I can share, I would love to.
Please.
Audre Lorde said, "I want to live the rest of my life, however long or short, with as much sweetness as I can decently manage, loving all the people I love and doing as much as I can of the work I still have to do. I'm going to write fire until it comes out of my ears, my eyes, my nose holes, everywhere, until it's every breath I breathe. I'm going to go out like a fucking meteor." Love that so much.
Chills.
I know, I know. To have that kind of um, choice, to be tempted by the choice and to choose it, not to go lightly, not to go quietly. I just love that so much. So
Mm,
keeping it weird as much as I can in witchcraft and enduring what that brings to me, and also, have tasting the fruits and loving the gifts. I spend all of my days with witches, and I love that.
mm. It's the best.
Totally.
We're so lucky to be able to connect in this way now as well,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
know. I know. That's its own magic, right?
Truly.
The pandemic
And you
giveth
just
and taketh away.
yes. So many strange silver linings to this odd time we're all
Very
existing through.
twisted.
Very twisted. You know, you just gave us such a beautiful token of wisdom in that quote. And I'm wondering, because I get this question a lot from folks in our community, folks who are seeking answers on their
Mhm.
path or seeking guidance, um, especially those who might feel like lost on the journey. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering if you have any guidance, advice to someone who might feel a little bit lost in their witchcraft.
Oh my goodness. Well, you're not alone. I think getting lost and being lost is the point because of the wisdom that happens in the dark. Do your shadow work. Make sure you vet your teachers and return to your animal body, return to your animal form. I love how Audre Lorde talked about um, their eyes and their ears and their nose holes. I referenced the orifices of the body already, and allowing that to not be forbidden, allowing all of the softness of our body. We're liquid form, we just are. These pores, everything lets in information and everything is emitting information too. Take a lot of time to rest if you feel lost on your witchcraft path. That could be just the idea that there's a singular goal or place that you're working your way towards. um, Maybe letting go of that's hard. Maybe there's sorrow in that. Maybe you were raised with this idea that there was one party that you're praying to get to after you die, and letting go of that idea that there's just that one place that people get to go, or that other place that people have to go if they were either bad or good. Let this experience of witchcraft not have a binary. It's a non-binary experience, and it's unfurling towards available light and nourishment. So get a lot of rest. Let it be pleasurable too. Yeah, drink lots of witch's brew. Find out what you like. Explore. Keep it weird. Keep it weird. Don't wait till you're 55.
Mm. Yes, you just said witch's brew, and I'm going to take a sip of my and drink
Good.
water, hydrate.
Okay. Yummy. Let's do it. That's the simple swallow spell. When we were talking about if there's anything I had to share with community, it's the intention that I place with my breath, with striking the wooden match and lighting our candle, and then setting my intention quietly on my tongue, raising the brew to the lips, and holding your witch's brew in your mouth with that code that you've placed on your tongue of your intention for just this moment, and allowing it to travel to everywhere in your body. And then your body will distribute it and disseminate it into the world. And drinking 3 times, letting yourself be delighted by throat gurgles and nose buzzes and whistles and silly little creaks and cracks that your body makes. Learning to truly love your animal body, I think, is the most important core witchcraft that there is. And just doing it really simply by just swallowing. You don't even have to have witch's brew to do a swallowing spell. I have the experience of folks reaching out to me because on my YouTube channel, I put my P.O. box, and somehow there's a trickle of folks that are incarcerated reaching out to me. And I am moved to create utter simplicity in my spell work in every way that I can, so it's accessible. Even if you're in some carceral, harmful situation where you're unable to have any kind of tools, your body is the only tool you need. So cheers to that. Just love the way your body makes sounds. It interacts with air and interacts with liquid. Love
Mm.
it. Drink in threes because, come on, we're witches. We love the number three. And know now that your intention is moving in the world exactly the way it's supposed to.
Such a good reminder in this age of modern witchcraft, where it also seems like it's being repackaged and sold to us, that
Blessed
our
be.
body is here. Yes, blessed be.
And it's complex too, because we both are creators of spiritual tools. And so those tools do physically sustain us. This is not casual. I could have stayed a salon owner and a hairdresser. I had to answer the call of the wild to do this work. And it just became impossible for me to do both. And I chose
Mhm.
pleasure. I chose the truth of myself, that I truly believe that um, creating ethical and sustainable magic is what's needed in the world. And so there's complexity in receiving funds for witchcraft. There's complexity in it, and you got to go slow and really know that you are doing the best that you can to create ethical and sustainable magic. I think most of the folks that are attracted at this point to the experience in modern witches at least wonder what it would be like to be a physical working witch. I just think that this is a very foundational time where a lot of folks want to be working witches as their business. And so I remind folks to just enjoy going nice and slow and keep it simple.
That's such good advice, especially because, like you said, it's so complex, and especially for someone who has a lot of privilege in this lifetime,
Yeah,
moving slowly, like you mentioned before, is one of the most important things
yeah,
that we can do.
totally. And truly, truly amplifying the works of witches that are marginalized in even more because they're Black, brown, indigenous, folks of color, you know, disabled, um, have any number of lack of privilege that I have. They're going straight to the front, and I'm holding the door for them. And that's I believe that I can function and receive funds ethically to hold that space. I've learned a great deal from working with modern witches too. I love how you listen. I love the way you hold space. And I know that, no, without a single doubt, I will make tremendous mistakes. You can run, but you can't hide. There's no way to say, I'm going to wait for 5 years before I jump in and make that dream come true of creating more ethical and sustainable magic. You will face it in your witchcraft if you're not already doing work that has more of a reparational style work, that amplifies the work of witches of color, queer witches, disabled witches. You can run, but you can't hide. You can't wait to create ethical and sustainable magic. It has to be now,
That's absolutely right.
and it's not easy.
No, it's not. And you will, yeah, you will make mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes, and it's
Me
the
too.
key is listening and really integrating the advice and the call outs and whatever
Mhm,
might come your way.
mhm.
And really just taking that in. That's energy that needs to be integrated,
Yeah,
so that you can change
yeah,
witchcraft, change.
exactly. Mystery, growing in the dark.
Mm.
Yielding, actually. There's that word yield too that comes up, and I like the word bend and yield kind of can dance together too as witch. I hadn't heard that before, that translation of witch to bend. I love that. But yielding is what the seed and the soil both do as they're in that mysterious dance of sharing what they know, but amplifying what with what the other knowledge is of the seed and the soil. So there's a yield, there's a huge yield, and yielding means slowing.
Right. Mm. Yes, I'm feeling like this is such a time of slowing. The time we're actually recording this interview during Mercury retrograde, and so there seems to be this like slow message bubbling to the surface, um, as well as the summer. The summer is such a time
Yeah.
of, for me, it feels like putting my fire on simmer and just like letting things come together in their own time. And that feels like a
Yes.
really nice thing.
And that's all I want to do. I wonder about
Yeah.
how I drive myself so hard, and there's that crow cawing again. I hope the audio picked that up, because I just talk about
Me
getting
too.
called out and called in. Um, yeah, this time, because we're also recording this in the true heart of eclipse season. And there's this unbelievable like wonkiness that feels like it's above ground. And literally, I need to hit the deck, and I need to be like prone as much as possible to receive the right way to slither across the surface. Do you know what I mean? I can't be up and out here right now. It's just too much. It's a lot of energy right now. And of course, talk about slowing down. Of course, my literal transmission broke. So I literally had a car stop working while my teenage driver was learning to drive. So we got to do all that like on Pacific Coast Highway,
Wow.
with the whole entire ocean right there. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, um, it's so literal right now. It's like, sit down, lady. And that's my intention for all of Hot Witch Summer too. I just did this like massive, like 12 enactment PDF for um, Sea Grape Apothecary. I'm finishing the triptych of spells, and a lot of folks that are tied in with the fabulous Modern Witches Coven were there for the center, the second of the sensuous transfiguration through pleasure magic spells. Well, they're ending at Sea Grape Apothecary this coming up weekend. And there's this 12 enactment PDF that folks will get that come to the Hot Witch Summer workshop that I'm doing, that will carry us through summer. And it was like, it is such a slow magic document of like, watch grass grow and drink these overly complicated witches brews that take time to create. You want to anyways. That's kind of the theme of it. Hot witch summer means you're absorbing that heat like that serpent in the sun, and just enjoying it. And that goes for folks on both hemispheres too. Hot witch summer is inside.
Yes. Oh my goodness, absolutely. I feel like this episode is going to be some kind of oracle. All of our interviews will probably be some kind of oracle for folks to tune in and
Totally.
receive what they need.
I'm so happy you're doing this, Casey. It's a lot of energy. We're talking about YouTube, and I love YouTube. I love having a YouTube channel. I barely even scratch the surface of what can be done on my channel, but it's a search engine. It's different than other applications that can be just snatched away from us. Yes, this can be snatched away from us too, but this is a little bit more sustainable. So I'm really excited you're here. Welcome to YouTube. This is just so exciting.
Oh, thank you. It feels so good to be initiating this process with you as well.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm just so excited for folks to continue learning from you as well.
Me
And
too.
happy to be announcing that you're going to be our FemmeCee
Oh my
for
goodness, I'm so
the
excited.
Confluence. And it's going to be such a party.
It is
Halloween
big
weekend.
time in all of its glory and all of its gory. I mean, it's everything. I'm very into adornment magic because of my beauty background. I was a teenage hairdresser and I still have an active license. And so we will have some ways of embodying magic at the Witches Confluence this year. So come see me at Witch Wayfinding and some other cool things that we're brewing up. And there'll be ways that we can adorn ourselves and connect with our body, with our physical form as witches. And I'm really excited about it.
Oh, cannot wait. This I feel like summertime for me. I'm just simmering and also dreaming about October. So
Totally.
happy to be dreaming into that with you.
Oh, me too,
Do you
Casey.
want to share where folks can find you and support you and any upcoming projects you want to shout out?
Thanks. Thank you. Yes, I am happy to be a working witch, happy to be creating ways, even though there's complexity and discomfort with it, creating ways that I can sustain myself and my family with my magic. And the number one thing that I'm super into now is writing little love notes that go straight to your inbox. So you can easily find that on all my socials. I'm active on my YouTube channel. I've got a worldwide coven that I tend there. We have a broadcast that's live stream every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific. That's been going on for years. We call in the corners. It is sacred space that we create. We're, between the worlds. We're behind the veils, creating work together. We have a lot of fun pulling tarot. I've got my final print run of Moon Baby Magic Tarot in the works right now that'll be shipping in October. And I'll have some of those available for purchase at Witches Confluence. I'm really proud that I was able to create that in this Altaloon collection campaign that I did outside of Kickstarter so I could create a BIPOC sliding scale, which I just reached the ability to create those decks at 50% off for folks of color. So I'm leaving that portal open for the sliding scale for Black, Brown, Indigenous, and people of color. And I'm just so excited that that worked out. That was created in community for community. It's really challenging to do that outside of those other platforms that amplify you. So the main way that I'm communicating with folks now that I think is sustainable is in these love notes. So subscribe to my newsletter. It says love notes in my link tree on Instagram and over in the about page on my YouTube channel. I would have loved and appreciate if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, where that's where it's really developing for me. I have some other things that are cooking right now too that I really love directly communicating with you. And I'm loving it. People are like responding in this really cool way to my love notes. They're writing me back. So I'm having these like email happy love affairs. Now I'm crushing all over the place. I have so many crushes right now, Casey. So many
Oh,
witch crushes.
that's the witch crushes are the best crushes.
Big time, I know, for real. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on. And like I said before, welcome to YouTube, where you're so welcome. Take the time, because this a search engine's a lot of energy. You'll feel it right away.
Mm.
And just enjoy. There's so much room for you here, honey.
Thank you. I'm so excited to figure it out, like weave webs with YouTube witches
Yeah,
in this new space, and also to connect with all of our viewers and our audience in this fun way. So
totally.
I will put all your links into our comment space and
Thank
make sure
you.
people know how to find you. And we'd love to hear from everyone if you have questions on the video.
Oh, thanks so much. And I hope I get to see everybody on the live streams that I'm going to be creating with Modern Witches in June, September, and November. They'll be in 3 different locations. And I know that by the time this broadcast is up, they'll probably be out, but we'll be working with sand at the beach as a core element of your witchcraft, with our ancestral blood magic at Kilpeck Castle in Wales, UK, COVID willing. And then at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, of course, we're going to be working with sacred dirt and a witch's
Mm,
brew.
wow, I am so excited for all of those things,
Excited
um,
too. Thank
and
you.
all the magic that we can brew together. Thank you so
Well,
much,
I'm excited.
Angela.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good to see you. Hit those comments and likes so we can feel your energy.